There is a strange moment in every life when the truth tries to speak. It whispers, it knocks. Sometimes it even shouts. But most of the time, we don't listen, not because we cannot hear it, no. We hear perfectly well. We simply choose the softer voice instead, the voice of deception. It says, "Don't worry, everything is fine. You're okay just the way it is. Why shake things up? Why question? Why risk?" And so, we listen, because deception doesn't arrive like a thief, it arrives like a friend. It strokes your fear, calms your doubts, reassures your restless heart with lullabies of comfort. And you welcome it, as if it were a blanket against the cold winds of reality. But here's the danger. While it comforts, it also chains you. Every time you accept a lie, whether it's the lie that you're happy when you're not, that you still have plenty of time while the clock keeps racing, or that someday you'll finally start living, you give away a little piece of yourself. And piece by piece, you disappear. Look around. How many people wake each morning with the quiet ache of knowing they are pretending? How many smiles hide resentment? How many dreams die quietly in the dark, never spoken out loud because pretending feels safer? It's not that the truth is unavailable. It's not hiding in some cave or locked in a book you can't access. The truth is simple, harsh, and ever-present. But it burns, and we'd rather press snooze on reality than live with the sting of waking up. So what happens? Days melt, weeks blur, years vanish politely, carrying away every maybe later you whispered to yourself, until regret becomes the only truth you cannot silence. Nietzsche said that most people don't fear lies, they fear what comes after. The lies are gone, because then you must finally see yourself naked, unmasked, responsible. So we welcome deception, not because we're fools, but because we're human. And being deceived feels easier than being alive. But here's the question you'll one day have to face. How long can you hide inside a lie before it begins to hide you from yourself? 1. Why we welcome deception so willingly. We humans are curious creatures. We claim to love the truth, worship honesty, and despise liars. But look closely. Most of the lies in our lives are not told to us by strangers. They are manufactured, polished, and delivered by us to ourselves. And we embrace them with open arms. It starts small. A quiet voice in the head says, "This isn't what you want." But before that voice completes its sentence, another one softer, sweeter interrupts. "Don't overthink. It's enough. At least you have stability. Others would kill for this." See how quick we are to negotiate with ourselves, to turn dissatisfaction into gratitude, longing into guilt, restlessness into silence. We aren't just deceived, we are complicit in the deception. Why? Because facing the truth is expensive. The truth asks too much of us. To admit that you hate your job means you must summon the courage to change it, maybe risking comfort, money, approval. To admit your relationship is hollow is to step into loneliness, confront heartbreak, and rebuild from scratch. To admit your dreams still haunt you is to abandon the excuses that have protected you for years. Truth demands transformation. Lies demand nothing at all. And so, deception slips in disguised as mercy. It strokes your wounds and says, You don't need to change. You're fine as you are. Just relax. It feels kind. It feels protective. But here's the irony. In giving you comfort today, it robs you of tomorrow. Imagine a prisoner with shackles on his wrists. The chains hurt at first, biting into skin. But give him enough time, and the pain dulls. The iron begins to feel like part of the body. The prisoner can no longer imagine walking without the weight. What was once agony becomes normal. What is normal becomes invisible. That's what deception does. It hurts a little at the beginning. You know it doesn't sit right deep down, but when repeated daily, it blends into your life's wallpaper. You stop questioning. Soon, deception evolves from a visitor into a roommate. And one morning, you can't remember a time it wasn't there. This is why comfort is so dangerous. Comfort doesn't force you to resist. It convinces you there is nothing to resist. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. When reality doesn't match your values or desires, instead of confronting the painful gap, your mind bends the narrative. This isn't what I dreamt of. But who really gets their dreams? Or sure, I'm unhappy, but at least I'm safe. Each rationalization is a tiny patch sewn over the rips in your soul. It covers but never repairs. And strangely, we don't just embrace these rationalizations. We defend them. Notice how defensive people get when you prod too close to their sleeping truth. Ask someone if they love their career and watch them grow irritated. Point out the cracks in someone's relationship, and suddenly you become the villain for overstepping. It's not that they don't see the cracks, it's that they've built their identity around ignoring them. And unpacking that house of lies feels too terrifying. Nietzsche's warning becomes clear here. Human beings crave illusions, not because they are fools, but because illusions are anesthetics. They numb the harshness of reality. They let you keep smiling without pulling down the fragile structures of your life. But what anesthetic cannot do is heal. Here's the tragedy. The lies you welcome with love do not love you back. They don't serve you. They serve your fear. The fear of being alone. The fear of failing while trying. The fear of looking foolish. The fear of responsibility. And so, you reach for the soothing lie instead of the painful truth. It's like reaching for candy instead of real food. Sweet, delightful, comforting. But slowly, it hollows you from the inside. You forget the sugar was never nourishment. Think about your mornings. Maybe you wake up tired, dreading the day. But you convince yourself that this is adulthood and that everyone hates mornings. You silence the alarm clock of your life by normalizing the pain. That's deception in its cleverest disguise, not denial of the suffering, but explaining it away as normal. By normalizing the ache, you stop looking for the antidote. You convince yourself that aching is simply living. And that is exactly how deception wins. Not through loud lies, but through subtle agreements you sign silently every single day. So why do we welcome deception so willingly? Because it feels safer than truth. Because it spares us from the burden of change. Because it allows us to stay loved, approved of, comfortable, and unchallenged. But comfort at that cost is not comfort at all. It is surrender dressed in silk, and you, of all people, were not born to surrender to the silent price we pay for lies. Lies feel soft when you first touch them. They cushion the sharp edges of reality. They soothe the ache of longing. They tuck you into bed like a lullaby. But comfort always has a bill, and deception, that gentle friend, is also a ruthless debt collector. The price you pay isn't loud. It doesn't show up as an alarm bell or a sudden collapse. It creeps in silently, takes little pieces of you day after day, until one morning you wake up and realize you've been robbed blind. What do we lose? Let's count. First, we lose time. Every day lived inside a lie is a day unlived. Hours vanish while you convince yourself you're happy enough, safe enough, stable enough. You watch months slide past like water down a drain because you never dared to ask if they could be more. The most silent, most fatal theft. The years you will never get back. There's no refund policy on time. You trade truth for comfort, and before you know it, entire decades have gone, exchanged for the illusion you thought you needed. Think of the countless mornings wasted on routines you hate, spent in elevators to jobs that hollow you, in conversations you don't believe in, smiling politely while your soul starves. Time doesn't scream when you waste it. It just quietly disappears. Second, we lose authenticity. When you welcome enough lies, you start forgetting what your actual voice sounds like. The mask becomes the face. You say, "I'm fine," so often that even your closest friends stop asking. And eventually, you start believing yourself. This is the scariest moment, when the lie no longer needs maintenance, because it has replaced reality. The deception lives inside you now. Nietzsche warned about this, that when we smother our true instincts for too long, we begin to decay spiritually. We become last men, creatures content with comfort, allergic to passion, incapable of courage. You lose not just your truth, but the capacity to even desire it. Third, we lose connection. Ironically, we lie to protect our relationships, but lies are slow poisons. You hide your true feelings so your partner won't leave. You mute your ambitions so your family won't judge. You water down your opinions so your friends won't recoil. And with each silence, with each swallowed truth, the distance grows. What begins as protection ends as isolation. After all, how can anyone truly love you if what they love is the mask? Think of it this way: if the only version of yourself you offer is the edited one, then even the affection you receive feels counterfeit. You start to mistrust love itself, because deep down you know it wasn't you they loved, just the performance. And what could be lonelier than that? Fourth, we lose potential. A lie doesn't just numb the present, it strangles the future. Every deception is a door you choose not to open. You tell yourself, "I'm too old to start that," and the possibility vanishes. You say, "It's too risky to try that," and the dream quietly dies. Multiply it over years, and you are left with a life not of what you dared to do, but of what you convinced yourself not to. The saddest graveyard is not in the earth, but in the human heart filled with buried ambitions, each marked with the single word, someday. Finally, we lose ourselves. This is the heaviest price. Some people wake up at 30 and realize they don't know what they believe. Others at 50, staring in the mirror, discover they no longer recognize the person looking back. Deception doesn't just steal your truth, it steals your identity. Piece by piece, You trade small parts of who you are until the entire mosaic is unrecognizable. And the tragedy. You never notice the theft when it's happening. Lies don't take everything all at once. They take a little today, a little more tomorrow, a memory here, a dream there, until there's nothing left but the shell of a person who once wanted everything. Here's the thing. You think you've been avoiding pain by choosing deception. You escape awkward conversations, frightening changes, the sting of failure. But the pain doesn't disappear, it compounds with interest. Instead of short-lived discomfort, you inherit long-lived regret. And regret is a debt far heavier than fear ever was. The worst part is not the years lost, or the dreams abandoned, or even the relationships fractured. The cruelest cost of all is that by living in lies for too long, you lose the ability to imagine truth. When comfort imprisons you completely, you no longer dream of freedom. You stop seeing the cage. And that's when deception smiles. It doesn't need to fight you anymore. It has won. 3. The hidden costs of living a lie. Lies do not come free. They arrive with welcoming smiles, wrapped in comfort, but hidden behind their backs is a silent invoice. The trouble is, the cost is never obvious up front. A little dishonesty here, a little compromise there, it feels manageable, almost harmless. But what you don't notice is how every small deception becomes a leak in the roof of your life. And when enough time passes, the rain destroys the foundation. So, what exactly do we lose when we choose deception? Let's strip away the illusions one by one. 1. You lose time. Time, the only currency you can never earn back. Every day lived in a lie is a day unlived. We tell ourselves, just until things settle, just until the timing is right. But years pass quickly inside deception's embrace. Suddenly, you're 5 years into a career you swore you'd just try for a while. 10 years into a relationship that stopped feeling alive long ago. 2 decades into a life carefully maintained, but never truly lived. Lies are patient, they don't steal in bursts. They drain you drop by drop, like sand slipping quietly through an hourglass, until one morning you look back and whisper, "Where did it all go?" -2. You lose authenticity. Every time you swallow your voice, dampen your truth, or nod in agreement when your heart is screaming to dissent, you trade authenticity for acceptance. You wear masks so often that the mask becomes indistinguishable from your face. And here's the tragedy. You start to forget what your real smile feels like, what your unfiltered opinions sound like. Nietzsche warned about this becoming the last man, content in his illusions, too afraid of discomfort, to risk authenticity. To live like this is not just self-deception, it's self-erasure. The greatest betrayal isn't lying to others. It's lying so long that you lose the map back to yourself. 3. You lose connection. Ironically, we welcome deception to keep our relationships intact. We stay quiet to maintain peace, fake contentment to avoid conflict, hide parts of ourselves so others won't reject us. But those choices create a hollow connection. Because if the version of yourself you present is edited and muted, then the love, approval, or friendship you receive is not truly yours, it belongs to the mask. And no matter how many people surround you, that knowledge breeds loneliness. Connection without authenticity is like drinking salt water. It looks like it quenches thirst. But the more you drink, the thirstier you become. -4. You lose joy, not excitement, not distraction, not fun nights out or the dopamine hit of scrolling. Real joy, the kind that radiates from living aligned with truth. Lies starve you of this joy because every act of deception instructs you to settle. Settling slowly numbs your spirit. Day by day, life feels less vibrant. Music you loved feels flat. Work feels draining instead of energizing. Even victories feel hollow because they weren't won for you. They were won for the version of you running on autopilot. You didn't just lose joy, you misplaced the very capacity for it. -5. You lose courage. Every compromise erodes your boldness. You tell yourself, I'll speak up next time. But next time never comes. Each silence weakens the muscle of bravery. Until one day courage feels like some exotic quality other people have. Not you. The tragedy. Courage isn't lost, it's slowly anesthetized by routine compliance. Courage is like fire. Leave it unattended, and it doesn't explode. It fades into ash. Living in lies leaves you timid, risk-averse, and fragile. -6. Finally, you lose yourself. This is the ultimate cost, and the most devastating. Ask an older man in his 60s who followed the rules, worked the job, played the part, kept his head down. Ask him why his eyes look glassy at dinner tables, why his laughs sound like echoes instead of eruptions. He'll tell you what the years of deception took. His identity, the cruelest part. He didn't even notice when it happened. Deception doesn't steal in one blow, it chips away, quietly. Like the sea against a cliff, one day, you stop recognizing the reflection in the mirror. And that moment breaks you more than any storm ever could. So, yes, the lies are seductive, beautiful even. They promised you safety. They promised you belonging. But they took pieces of you in silence. Time, authenticity, connection, joy, courage, and finally your true self. A debt collector that leaves you empty. Right at the moment you realize the bill is due. But here's the secret they never tell you. You can't stop adding to that debt. The costs may be heavy, but the truth is always waiting undaunted, patient, untouched by years of neglect. And as soon as you step toward it, even trembling, you reclaim the very things deception stole. That's the paradox. Truth terrifies because it asks for courage, but it's also the only currency through which you can buy your freedom back. The hidden costs of lies are devastating, but the profit of truth, that is immeasurable. For the fear of truth, terror disguised as liberation. The truth, just the word alone, can feel heavy. Count it. It doesn't caress you like deception, it confronts you. It doesn't lull you into comfort, it rattles your bones. And that terrifies us. If lies are the warm blanket we wrap around ourselves, truth is the cold morning air that rips the covers away. Most people spend their lives avoiding that chill. They don't realize it's not the cold that kills, it's suffocating. Under the blanket forever. Why does truth scare us so deeply? Because it exposes. It strips away the masks, the excuses, the carefully curated narratives. And standing naked before yourself is the most vulnerable act of all. It's not the world's judgment we fear most, it's our own. Think of every time you've almost touched an honest realization, but pulled back. When you considered quitting that unfulfilling job, but the thought of instability set your chest on fire. When you imagined ending the relationship that felt more like a cage, but the loneliness waiting outside the bars seemed unbearable. When you looked in the mirror and asked, "Am I really happy?" and immediately looked away, because the honest answer burned too brightly. That is the fear of truth. Psychologists would say it's evolutionary. Our brains treat uncertainty like a predator. Better a miserable known than a terrifying unknown. Nietzsche said it more poetically. Most people can't bear reality unfiltered. They turn away, hypnotized by distractions and illusions, because seeing clearly demands strength. And strength is exhausting. But here's the paradox. The very thing we fear the nakedness truth forces upon us is what makes us free. How? Because illusions demand maintenance. Every lie you live requires constant upkeep. Pretending, justifying, explaining, performing. Deception isn't comfort. It's labor. Truth, though painful, requires no maintenance. It simply is once you face it. The energy you wasted on lies becomes fuel for living. This is why people describe facing truth as both terrifying and exhilarating. It feels like standing on the edge of a cliff. Your body screams, danger, but your soul whispers, flight. The terror is real, but so is the liberation waiting beneath it. Ask anyone who finally left the job that was killing them, or ended the relationship that had become a slow death. At first, they trembled. They almost turned back. But once they chose truth, once they walked into the storm, they describe a strange sensation. Lightness, relief, space to breathe. The storm that terrified them also washed them clean. Fear of truth disguises itself in clever masks. Pragmatism, I'm just being realistic. Responsibility, this is what's expected of me. Maturity, everyone grows up and settles down. But peel away the layers, and often it's just fear pure. Raw fear of living authentically, because authenticity comes with consequences. Judgment, risk, failure, and yet, every consequence of truth is better than the slow poison of deception, every single one. Here's the haunting irony. The pain of truth is sharp, but temporary. The pain of lies is dull, but permanent. Rip the bandage, feel the sting, then heal. Or keep the bandage on and let the wound fester forever. It's your choice. But imagine this. Instead of running from the mirror, you stand still. Instead of shutting down the question, is this really me? You sit with it. Yes, your heart pounds. Yes, your throat tightens. But in that shaking moment, you are free, because nothing owns you anymore, not the mask, not the script, not the lie. You are finally yours. Nietzsche described truth as an abyss terrifying to gaze into. But he also believed in leaping into that abyss, because in the fall you find your wings. The abyss is not the end, it's the beginning. So, the next time your body recoils from truth, don't mistake the terror for danger. Terror is just the disguise of liberation. It means you're standing on the threshold of your real life, the life untouched by illusions, no longer suffocated by deception. The question is simple, though not easy. Will you keep hiding under the blanket, convincing yourself it's warm enough? Or will you throw it off, embrace the chill, and breathe in the crisp, unfiltered air of reality. One path feels cozy now, but costs you everything later. The other feels terrifying now, but gives you everything later. The fear of truth is real, but so is the freedom it hides. 5. The path forward, living in truth, so here you stand on the threshold. Truth calling louder than ever, the cage door open, the fog thinning. The realization is both thrilling and terrifying. Deception no longer controls you, unless you let it. But what now? How do you not just awaken to truth but actually live it? Here's the secret. You don't need to blow up your whole life tomorrow. The path forward isn't a single leap, it's a series of steps, each soaked in honesty. Step 1. Practice radical self-honesty. This means asking yourself questions and refusing the temptation of polished answers. Am I fulfilled? Do I like the person I am when I'm alone? What do I truly want beyond appearances, beyond approval? These aren't questions for polite small talk. They're your compass. Write them down. Sit with them. Let the unease stir. Because unease is a sign you're finally touching reality. Nietzsche insisted that to become who we are, we must peel away illusions layer by layer. So start peeling. Step 2. Act in micro-truths. The grand gesture: quitting the job, leaving the relationship. Selling everything sounds cinematic, but in real life it's usually the smaller acts of integrity that shift the tide. Say what you feel in a conversation, even if your voice shakes. Decline an invitation you don't want instead of offering a polite excuse. Admit an insecurity instead of disguising it. Each small truth plants a flag. I choose to live here, in reality, not in illusion. Over time, these flags reclaim territories stolen by lies. Step 3. Build courage through exposure. Courage is not natural. It's trained. Start exposing yourself to the edges of fear, step by step. Speak one truth this week that scares you. Apply for one role that intimidates you. Have one conversation you've been avoiding. Each time you do, you build a muscle. Memory. Fear is not a cage. Fear is just a doorway. Walk through often enough, and the doorway widens. Step 4. Create environments that reward authenticity. You cannot nurture a truth-filled life in soil rich with deception. Choose people who tolerate, even celebrate, your raw honesty. If your circle only reinforces your masks, expand it. Seek communities, mentors, friendships where truth is not punished but supported. When you live among the honest, lies lose their seduction. Step 5. Forgive the lost years. Maybe you're haunted by the time deception stole, the relationships wasted, the dreams shelved, the self neglected. Let that grief move through you, but don't chain yourself to it. Every moment of honesty from today forward rebuilds what was lost. Forgiveness is not permission for the theft. It's the key that stops you from remaining chained to the crime scene. And above all, hold on to this. Truth is not a finish line. It's a practice. You will stumble. Some days you'll hide again, deceive again, settle again. That doesn't mean you've failed. It just means you're human. But unlike before, now you will know. And the knowing is power. Because each falter teaches you how to reorient, how to return to the compass pointing north. Authenticity. Living in truth won't shield you from suffering. In fact, it might invite more rejection, failure, discomfort, even loss. But here's the redemption. It will also invite real joy, deep connection, unshakable self-respect. Your suffering will be honest suffering, the kind that shapes you rather than erases you. Nietzsche envisioned the overman, the one who creates meaning, rather than borrowing illusions. You don't need to be heroic, just devoted to your own reality, and in doing so, a quiet heroism emerges anyway. The courage to live as yourself. Pause and imagine this. You wake up tomorrow and speak one truth you've been silencing. The earth doesn't split. The sky doesn't fall. It feels scary, yes, but it also feels electric. Energy rushes back. Integrity knits you together. This is life lived awake and once tasted. You'll never long for the dull sweetness of deception again. Truth is terrifying, yes, but terror is the mask liberation wears. Strip it away, and freedom is what smiles back at you. So when you hear truth's call answer, you don't need to know the whole path. Just take the first step. The path reveals itself only as you walk it. And every step is worth it. Because authenticity isn't simply living, it's finally feeling alive.